you are very familiar with the situation in Malawi, and you're going to walk us through the current situation and the background of what happened for us to get where we are. Can you give us more information on what is happening in Malawi?
Yes, I'll start with the background of Malawi as a country itself, as a democracy. Malawi got its independence in 1964. So that's when Hastings or Kamuzu Banda, who is popularly known as Kamuzu Banda, was the prime minister then. So he was he led a legislative body, and as the blacks, they made the first government then. So he ruled for 30 years, just similar like the situation we had in Zimbabwe, where a leader who got independence ruled for that long time. So he ruled for 30 years, and then due to pressure, other players in the Malawi sector, the Kamuzu Banda, the Pakilim losers, fought to have a referendum to introduce a multi-democracy. So these were the people who forced the multi-party. So we can liken them to Zimbabwe, where we have Morgan Tsvangirai. Those were the people who I can liken to Pakilim losers, who fought to ensure that Malawi was a multi-democratic party. So in 1993, that's when they held a referendum. That's where they instituted the first multi-party democracy. So the elections they had them the next year in 1994. So Bakili Muluzi was able to win over Kamuzu Banda in that election. So that's the democratic journey which led Malawi to multi-democracy. And before this whole period, Malawi was a one-party state, which it only one a single party. So we moved on to the election in to two other further elections, because Pakili Muluzi was able to gain re-election in 2004, and he left office in 2009 by imposing Bingu Wamtarika, who is a brother to the current incumbent who lost this election. So the situation is quite interesting. How we got into how Bingu Wamtarika got into the presidency, because it's kind of a succession issue, which is too common in African politics, where what happened was Bakili Muluzi had his own party called the United Democratic Front, but he failed to trust other leaders in that party to succeed him. So he picked a successor from outside the party, which is too common in Zimbabwe, where you have Robert Mugabe saying, I'm failing to find a successor in my own party, ZANU-PF. So he picked Bingu Wamtarika, who had lost two other elections, to come in to lead his party. So so that's how Bingu Wamtarika, brother to Peter Mutharika, got into office then. So after getting into office, you know, a person who is political doesn't want to be tied to other political actors. So they went, and also Bakili Muluzi wanted to sort of control Bingu Wamtarika when he got into office. So Bingu Wamtarika could not have that. So they had a fallout after Bingu Wamtarika was in office. So that's the first issue which happened. That's when Bingu Wamtarika, for the other elections, he formed the DPP, which contested under Peter Mutharika right now. So that's the development which happened to where we are right now, where we're having this election, where there was this party called the DPP, Democratic Progressive Party. Do you have any questions at the moment?
Yes. So Malawi has had 4 presidents.
Yes.
From the time it got independence in 1964.
Yes.
Are they coming from the same political party?
They are coming from different political parties. But
okay.
The interesting part is when a party is in office, there are succession issues, succession battles, which are quite similar to the issues which are in political parties in Zimbabwe. As I explained to you, the succession which happened between Muluzi and Bingu Mtarika, it was picking from outside the party, not having a process internally inside the party which happened. So someone just picked from outside a candidate and imposed them on the party. So the same goes to even Bingu Mtarika. When he was about to leave office in 2010, he also selected his brother. He selected his brother who was not in the party structures, just like the MDC issue right now, where Peter Mtarika was not elected by Congress, because when they created that party, at their initial Congress, they elected Joyce Banda, who was the third president. He was the third president. So when they elected Joyce Banda, in Malawi they have what we call running mates, which in Zimbabwe is going to be, in the next election we are going to have a running mate unless the constitution does not get amended. So the concept of a running mate is that before you go into an election, you declare that this is going to be my vice president. So that's the position which Joyce Banda had when that election happened. So when Bingu Mtarika was now trying to leave office, he wanted to impose his brother now who was not elected by a Congress, to be his successor at the expense of Joyce Banda, who was elected through a Congress. So it created splits in DPP. So in 2012, that's when Bingu Mtarika unfortunately died. He died whilst he was in office. So the law in Malawi, and in Zimbabwe after this election, after the 2023 election, if there is a running mate, it means that that running mate is supposed to be the president who's going to finish the term of office, rather than a political party which will nominate. So that's where Joyce Banda came in to be president, the third president was it the fourth president of Malawi then? The third president of Malawi then, to finish the term which Bingu Mtarika had run. Okay. So obviously they were.
Right, so let's go through this. I want people to understand. We had Kamuzu Banda. We had, what's the next one?
The next one was Bakili Muluzi.
Bingu Mtarika.
Then Bingu Mtarika.
Who died in office.
Joyce Banda finished the term because she was vice president. Then we now had Peter Mtarika, who won the election now in 2014.
Okay, so DPP has had 3 presidents.
Yes, DPP has had 3 presidents. Yes.
Okay, and with the party of Kamuzu Banda, for the past 15 or so years, they were not in office. But the current president, Lawrence Chakwera?
Yeah, Lazarus
Chakwera is coming from Kamuzu Banda's political party.
Yes, yes.
Right. So Malawians are going back to a form of ZANU-PF that we have now.
Yeah, sort of. Yes. Sort of, okay. Because
that's where I want to go. Yeah. Why are we going back to our ZANU-PF? What has gone wrong?
Well, as we analyze the election results, even in the current election, we can see that the voting patterns, even in the first election, which was in 2019, the country was divided into 3 regions in terms of the voting outscore. And so political parties have their strengths in different areas of the country, just like in Zimbabwe, where we have. So Malawi is divided into 3 regions. There's the north, the central, then there's the southern region, where we have Blantyre. Southern region, we have Blantyre. The central region, we have Lilongwe. Then the northern region, we have Mzuzu. So in the 2019 election, there were 3 strong candidates who were the DPP candidate, who is Mutharika. Then we had the MCP candidate, who is now the president right now, Lazarus Chakwera. Then we also have another political party which was formed by a former vice president to Peter Mutharika, who's Sao Charima, who is from, he was stronger in the northern part. So even if we look at the distribution of votes then, we see that Mutharika carried the day because he had 39%, but he was stronger in the southern region. The president now had 35%, but he was strong in the central region. Then So Charima was strong in the northern part, he had 20%. But now the difference is, in this election, So Charima and Lazarus Chakwera were able to unite to make a coalition, which is which in Zimbabwe doesn't happen, that people can see the strength of having coalitions. So when they united, that's when they were able now to score 56%. But Peter Mutharika has maintained the same scoring which he has had, the same 39% he has had in the first election in 2019 is the same scoring which he has had in this election. So you see that if there was no coalition between the two, Peter Mutharika was also going to win this election.
Okay, that's a very interesting and important analysis.
Yes.
The 2 strong candidates that form the coalition,
yes,
are they speaking the same language? Are they from the same tribe? Are there any tribal issues in Malawi?
Tribal issues to a lesser extent in Malawi, because the northern part, which is the upper part, that's where there's a sort of a different tribe than the central and southern regions. The central and southern regions speak the common language, but the northern part now, that's the part which speaks a language, a dialect called Tumbuka and Nyanja, which is different from the central part and the southern part. So
okay.
You can also see that in the voting patterns, where someone was born, those areas, he gets a stronger showing. Because Peter Mutharika was born in Zomba, and they are from the southern part, so he has a greater voting population in that area. The current president, Lazarus Chakwera, was born in Lilongwe, areas around Lilongwe, the capital, the central part. He has a greater showing there. Then the other one, Saulo Chilima, got a greater share in the northern parts. So tribal issues, they are there, but not as much. But it's a hometown issue. This is my hometown, so you gain votes in your hometown.
Okay, now let's go to the issues. What are the top 5 issues in Malawi at the moment which can influence an election? Or is it just this regional distribution?
Yeah, this regional distribution is a factor. And also, right now, maybe as we move forward now, the challenge is now, especially in an alliance, you see the alliances, yes, they are good, but how they are going to share power now, it's going to be a challenge now. Because you saw even the Zimbabwean alliance right now, you see it was okay before the election, but now after the election or now after they assume government, there are going to be a whole set of issues in Malawi now. So the challenge is, obviously, these are people who had their own teams. In the previous election in 2019, Saul Chilima would have he would have been president. He would have his own running mate. Even Lazarus Chakwera would have his own. He would be president, but he had also selected his own running mate. So now forming a government under those circumstances, we are going to see some issues now. Like we have seen alliances in Zimbabwe and how alliances have failed 2 years post an election.
Okay, now let's go to the economy. Is the economy of Malawi doing well?
The economy of Malawi, let me start when Peter Mutharika was came into office. He came into office after the term of Joyce Banda. So there were some issues to do with donor funding then, because there was a scandal which happened. They call it Cashgate in Malawi, where the coffers of government were looted by politicians. So when he came in, Peter Mutharika, what he did to arrest some of the problems, economical problems, because donors had pulled out that time, he reduced the size of cabinet due to the fact that donors were no longer sponsoring Malawi, because previously the economy of Malawi, 40% was donor funded. So it's something which just went out overnight. So Peter Mutharika did a tremendous job in ensuring that the fiscus was very tightened, because he made a cabinet of 16 ministers. He made quotas of saying government officials are only supposed to travel outside the country 3 times a year. He reduced the spending he cut the government. That's what he did. So the challenges maybe which are going to be there by having an alliance, you see the number of needs or satisfactions which need to be satisfied by 2 different political establishments which were ready to enter into government. It means that obviously there are going to be issues to do with the size of cabinet, the distribution of seats which is going to be there. So the economy of Malawi, due to the policies which were done by Peter Mutharika, he had tightened his budget, and he was able to spend according to local resources, not donor funds. So it's going to be interesting as we move forward how Malawi is going to fare economically now. But what I can say is currently the Malawian budget is fully financed by Malawian funds. So it's going to be interesting through this alliance, how are they going to distribute seats, and what is going to be the size of the government then, considering the tightening policies which were there, which were done by Peter Mutharika.
Okay, now let's look at the military factor in Malawi.
Yes.
How come the generals in Malawi were able to be independent of Peter Mutharika? How did the party of Peter Mutharika lose control of the military?
Well, that's an interesting. But one thing you have to know about Malawi, which is different from Zimbabwe. The military, yes, is there, but it's different from Zimbabwe, because one of the things, it did not go through an armed struggle like we did in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is a country which had an armed struggle, which was very intensive. In Malawi, the government, it was under colonization, but it was a different form of colonization, where there were a few officials of the British Crown who just ensured order in Malawi, but there were not many officials like in Zimbabwe. In Rhodesia, I'm referring to Rhodesia. Rhodesia had a separate military command, had a separate police command from the British Crown. But in Malawi, these were just the security situation was just a few soldiers from the British Crown who were just employed on a monthly basis. So even when it got independence, it did not engage in a military struggle, like in a guerrilla struggle like we did. So the military is very much apart from the politics of the Malawian government, as we can compare it to Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe, the military is very much a part of the government structures of our country.
Okay, so are there any tribal issues in the military is the current president, Lazarus Chakwera, in the same tribe as the guys who are in the military now, who are at the top?
Yes, they're in the same tribe. They're all from they're in the same tribe. In Malawi, tribal issues are not that they are there, especially the only part is the northern part is the one which speaks in a different dialect from, but it cannot be able to just like you see in Zimbabwe we have the Ndebele and the Shona divide, but the Ndebele population is 20% of the Zimbabwean population. So even the Ndebele politicians in Zimbabwe know that fielding a candidate for national presidency is a difficult sell. So what they do, especially Nube's party, what he did, he saw that he even brought in Atam Tamba to be the president then, to contest as the president, him being in the sideline. So that's the same situation we have with those northern tribes. They know that having a national appeal would be very difficult. So they play behind a person who is from a popular tribe, and they play it behind. So that's that's how the tribal setup is in Malawi.
Okay, so soldiers demonstrated with the people in Malawi.
Yes.
How does that work? Can you just give us a brief explanation of how that worked?
Well, but now, as you see the election results right now, you see that they had this rerun, but it was totally unnecessary because the first result has been replicated in this election. The only difference is that there was an alliance. There was an alliance in this election as compared to the first election. Otherwise, Peter Mutharika has maintained the same total he had, the same share of what he had in the first election has been maintained. And the game changer here has only been but now, as I have explained, that the support bases now are from different areas in the country. In the south, that's where we have Peter Mutharika. In the central, the current president. Then the running mate of the current president in the north. That's the only game changer which has happened. So if you enter in different areas, obviously there will be support for different candidates in different areas. Just like in Zimbabwean politics. But I always say this, and even in my book, that's the thing I stress about governance systems which allow people from different communities, different areas to be incorporated in government. Because right now, a greater share of Malawians who had won their victory, according to the rules which were there in 2019, are now going to be disenfranchised from the governance system for the next 5 years. That's why, as Africa, we have not yet sat down to really come up with governance systems which allow every part to be every part of our regions, every part of our communities to be reflected in the national government. That's the challenge we have in Africa. That we are going to run for the next 5 years with the result which reflects, yes, a majority, but it's going to differentiate part of the population which had other aspirations, which had other leaders it wanted to be represented by.
Okay, so are you saying there was no rigging in the first election?
Yes, you see the results right now. If you look at the results, they pay testimony to that there was no rigging at all.
Okay. And can you say Malawi has democracy, let's say compared to South Africa and Zimbabwe? Where would you place Malawi?
Well, democracy is a complicated word. And in my book, I explain that. I explain democracy, what democracy means. Because democracy is, if you explain democracy, is the government of the people. So I'll just give you a brief definition of it. Where it came from in Greece it meant that every decision which needed to be made in government, everyone would take a part. So what we have are now republics. So republics just mean that you have, because everyone cannot be in government. So you have representatives who are supposed to make those decisions on behalf of the communities. So to say democracy, right now, what I'm complaining about is that a certain part of the population of Malawi, which are in the south, are now going to be neglected in governmental issues. So so democracy, we need to really come to terms with the definition of democracy.
Okay, but in Zimbabwe, the army is interfering in elections.
Yes.
The winner is not allowed to take over. The newspapers are biased. The opposition parties are complaining about unfair electoral fields. So if we can obviously compare the three to say, where is Malawi at the moment? Is it a democracy where things are supposed to be, are where they're supposed to be?
Yeah, in Malawi, I can tell you there are many television channels. And I was even surprised when I visited last year that they are, because when I stayed in 2008, there was only one television station. But now, there are many television stations, local television stations. There are around 7, 8 television stations. Newspapers, there are many newspapers. But at the time I was saying the radio stations, there were many radio stations. I was surprised when I came back and saw that we are still at 4 radio stations. Because in Malawi, even churches have their own radio stations, which are which broadcast to the public. So yeah, when we compare those things, yes, Malawi is it's an elder brother to Zimbabwe in terms of freedom, those freedoms.
Okay, now let's go to the expectations of the people. Many Zimbabweans are waiting for an opposition party to get into power. They hope that will solve the economic crisis in the country. From the lessons of Malawi, do you think having an opposition party in power will improve the economy in Zimbabwe?
Well, I think you see the DPP, which was, you can tell me the opposition party, but you know, in Malawi it's complicated. It's like Zimbabwe politics, where political parties are defined by the personalities who lead them. That's the same situation. They are not, political parties are not vested in ideals. That you believe in certain things in political parties. Yes, they say democracy, but they don't know the meaning of democracy, even both in Malawi and in Zimbabwe. It's just a grouping of people who have interest to capture the state on certain issues. So political parties, you have to be very careful about those political parties. Political parties, especially in Africa, are not formed basing on any ideals of anything. So that they are just people who want to get into power, to influence it, or to gain influence in the economy on certain things. But political parties are never based on any ideals. So that's the same Zimbabwe or Malawi. Political parties do not have any ideals at all.
Okay, for the majority of the Malawians, has there been a change? I know that there's a lot of Malawians in Zimbabwe and in South Africa. Can a Malawian person at any point ever imagine going back to settle and do business in Malawi?
Yes, many Malawians Malawi. I'll analyze the time I was there. There was a real change in the environment in Malawi. You saw factories just popping up everywhere, and even when I went back, you can really see the progress which is happening in that country. When you are coming back to Zimbabwe, especially after 4 years coming back to Zimbabwe, you see things were just the same after 2011 when I came back from the time I went to Malawi. So you can see that there's a lot of things which are happening in other countries when you compare to Zimbabwe. yes, the standard was quite low from the onset, because it was not a country which was colonized to up to 1980 like we did. So the development levels were not quite there, but you can see that there is progress in terms of in business in Malawi there.
Okay, so let's now wrap this up, and let's look at what happens from now. I saw that Peter Mutharika has left State House. Can you walk us through the process until we get to the next election?
Well, right now the cabinet has to be formed, and the issues now are going to be the allocation of seats and the size of cabinet. Those are going to be the major issues now. And we have seen alliances, and we have seen a Zimbabwean alliance which went into the election as an alliance. Now, because of processes which went on after the election, where people from one faction of the alliance and the other newcomers to the alliance, there was a problem in the allocation of seats after that. So they are going to be, I foresee major issues to do with allocation of seats, especially to people who are preparing to be presidents. Now they are in a sort of a power sharing like arrangement. So I foresee the size of cabinet being increased greatly, which is going to be an expense to the fiscals, which can also have issues to do with economical issues, consequences. They can have economical consequences, and control itself is going to be very, 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 very difficult in those circumstances, because the president will have to satisfy his own family, and he's also going to look to the family of Saul Chalima, the running mate, the vice president right now. So there are going to be major issues with this arrangement.
Okay, then after the formation of the cabinet, I know there was a rerun. When is the next scheduled election in Malawi?
Usually they have elections after 5 years in Malawi. The term of office is 5 years.
Okay, so they're going to start.
It's going to be stretch. So it's going to be interesting. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see now, because members of parliament have they also have 5 years, but now the terms are now different now from the president now. So it's going to be interesting. Are they going to have a harmonized election, or are they going to extend the term of office of members of parliament?
Okay, and is Peter Mutharika going to get his pension?
Those are issues. You see, in Africa, it's a decision of the incumbent, and it's the decision of the incumbent to do.
Okay.
If there's going to be pension there, and usually that's where the whole succession issue is.
Okay. Right. So we are now in 2020, and we are expecting the election to be in 2025.
2025, the presidential, yes.
Okay. And then I just want to end by asking you, you say the politics in Malawi is almost the same as the politics in Zimbabwe.
Yes.
From 1964 to 2020, it's a long time. Yes. And Malawi still has issues in their governance system. Do you think Zimbabwe still has a long way to go?
Yes, Zimbabwe has a long way to go. But I think what we miss as Africa, as African democracies, is a process where we sit down as various, as the various establishment, to really craft up a governance system whereby everyone in the population is ensured to participate in, whether in governance. So, just like ourselves as a country, we had our constitution from a negotiation made by the British through Lancaster. Then in 2008, when we had that dispute, we also had another power sharing arrangement which created some terms of reference. But that process is is said to be was mainly headed by the three main political parties at that time. It never included the broader Zimbabwean, the Zimbabwean spectrum. So I think as Africa, we lack that time where we sit down and reflect on the challenges we have had with the political system and craft a way which ensures that everyone in Zimbabwe or in Malawi, because right now I was pointing you that Peter Mutharika was more scored higher in the southern regions. But now it means that this population is going to be disenfranchised for the next 5 years. So we have not yet, as Africa, sat down like what South Africa did. Its independence. It sat down in South Africa, all political, down at CODESA 1, CODESA 2. And so it is an example for us, South Africa, what it did. Yes, it has challenges, but whenever it has challenges, you see, even in this coronavirus, it met all the political parties in South Africa met, because that's how it was created, rather than these other political environments in Africa. So both South Africa, Zimbabwe, both Malawi and Zimbabwe have to sit down to really craft a way, because we have challenges in our political system. We have the run of and the nullification of an election and produce the same result. It's a big thing. It's a big thing, and they have to really investigate their governance system.
Okay, but I think one issue that is coming out clearly is that the Malawians right. I think one thing that came out clearly is that the Malawians were able to deal and solve their own issues without external parties. Do you agree that there were no external parties or mediators throughout this period when Malawi had an election dispute?
Well, to say they have dealt with the issue, it will be. I don't see them. I don't see if they've dealt with the issues, because the same result which was there in the first election is the same result which is there right now. So to say they've dealt with the issue, I don't think they've really dealt with the issue, because if you have a replica of the first election in terms of percentages being repeated in the same, and I'm yet to see now the map in terms of this map to see who won this district, because this is the initial map which shows you the details of the distribution. So I'm yet to see the distribution of votes even in this. So to say that they have solved, they are far away from solving. Yes, it's a technical issue that now these opposition parties were able to win because of the coalition, but the same underlying issues are still there. Because in the first election, the rule was a person who just scores the highest mark is supposed to be the one who is president. So it means that if 3 people score 30%, you have disenfranchised also the others who have also scored 30%, but are from different locations. So they have to really sit down as what happened in Rwanda, where people would sit down to really.
Are you saying the president in Malawi, his election is disenfranchising the rest of the population, or they're still represented by parliamentarians?
Yes, they are still represented by parliamentarians, but you see, it's now unfair to him, because under the rules of the first election, he was supposed to be the president.
Okay. So do you see him appealing this? He's already walked out of parliament, out of State House.
Well, some things, you see, just like the way Robert Mugabe left. Yes, he could have appealed against the coup, But sometimes there are statements which are in Africa who decide to say, well, let's just let progress go. They just leave things to, they just let it go. So maybe he's a person who has just let the country be.
Okay, Mr. Terence Simbi, I really enjoyed talking to you on this very interesting issue of Malawi. And I think we should come back again after the inauguration. We should keep track of what happens in Malawi. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to talk about?
We are going to cover in other segments. So thank you very much, Mr. Graba.
All right, can you please briefly tell me about your book?
Well, my book, Zimbabwe Installing a True Democratic State, it looks at it first of all, the first chapters first of all define democracy, what democracy is, and it also gives the origins of democracy. And so I'll be discussing about the ancient democracies, which were the Athenian democracies. Then in the next chapter, I also discuss about the American democracy, how it developed. And I also look at how democracy developed in Europe, then also discuss how democracy developed in Africa. Then in the other chapters now, from chapter 3, I discuss about, chapter 3, I discuss about the recall provision, which is in our Zimbabwean constitution. Chapter 4, I discuss about sanctions, the Zidera bill. Chapter 5, I discuss about the elections of 2018. Chapter 6, I discuss about the post-election violence which happened after that election. Chapter 7, I discuss about the complexities of the governance system. Chapter 8, I discuss about Nelson Chamisa and the succession quagmire. Then I finish up by the land question in chapter 9. So that's basically the contents of that book.
Okay, very, very interesting. And you did your studies in Malawi after being at the University of Zimbabwe. What did you study in Malawi?
In Malawi, I studied accounting.
Okay.
I studied ACA. I went for ACA lessons.
Okay, that's fantastic.
At the Malawi College of Accountants.
Okay, that's very, very interesting. And I'm going to make sure that we bring you back to talk about both the Malawian issues and the Zimbabwean issues. Very, very interesting. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you.